My dear children, today I will tell you a very interesting English folktale called The Three Sillies. It is a humorous story about people who sometimes worry too much and imagine things in the silliest ways. In the tale, there are strange and funny situations that will make you laugh but also wonder, have I ever been foolish like that? Through laughter, the story reminds us to live more realistically and not to waste time worrying about things that may never happen. At the same time, it teaches us to be understanding, because everyone makes mistakes or acts silly sometimes. Listen carefully, because many surprises and delights are waiting for you at the end of the story.
The Three Sillies. Once upon a time, a farmer and his wife had a daughter who was courted by a kind gentleman. Every evening he would visit for supper. One evening, as the daughter went to the cellar to draw beer, she noticed a mallet stuck in a beam above her head. She had never seen it before. She began to think, oh dear, what if I marry him and we have a son, and he grows up and comes down here to draw beer, and that mallet falls on his head and kills him? With a gasp, she put down her jug and candle and sat on the floor, weeping. Upstairs, her mother wondered why the beer was taking so long. She went down to the cellar and found her daughter sobbing, with beer spilling onto the floor. "Whatever is the matter?" asked her mother. "Oh, mother," cried the daughter, "look at that horrid mallet. Suppose we were to marry and have a son, and he came down here, and the mallet fell and killed him. Dear, dear, what a dreadful thing indeed," said the mother, and she sat down beside her daughter, joining in the tears. Soon after, the father grew curious about their long absence. He went down to the cellar himself, only to find his wife and daughter crying, with beer still running across the floor. "Whatever is the matter?" he asked. "Why," said the mother, "look at that horrid mallet. Suppose our daughter and her sweetheart marry and have a son, and he comes down here, and the mallet falls and kills him." "Dear, dear, dear, so it would," exclaimed the father, and he sat down with the other two, adding his own tears to the puddle. The gentleman, tired of waiting alone in the kitchen, finally ventured into the cellar. There they were, all three, crying side by side, with beer still flowing. He quickly turned off the tap. "Whatever are you three doing, sitting there crying and letting the beer run all over the floor?" he asked. "Oh," cried the father, "look at that horrid mallet. Suppose you and our daughter were to marry and have a son, and he grew up and came down here to draw beer, and the mallet was to fall on his head and kill him." And they all began to cry even louder. But the gentleman burst out laughing, reached up, and pulled out the mallet. "I've traveled many miles," he declared, "and I've never met three such big sillies as you. I shall travel again, and when I find three bigger sillies, I'll return and marry your daughter." With a goodbye, he left them, still crying over their lost sweetheart. The gentleman set out on his travels, journeying far and wide. At last, he came upon a woman's cottage with grass growing on its roof. The woman was trying to get her cow to climb a ladder to eat the grass, but the poor cow was too afraid. "What are you doing?" asked the gentleman. "Why," she said, "look at all that beautiful grass. I'm getting the cow onto the roof to eat it. She'll be safe. I'll tie a string around her neck, pass it down the chimney, and tie it to my wrist so she can't fall without me knowing." "Oh, you poor silly," said the gentleman. "You should cut the grass and throw it down to the cow." But the woman thought it easier to get the cow up than the grass down. So she pushed and coaxed the cow up, tied the string, passed it down the chimney, and fastened it to her wrist. The gentleman continued on his way, but he hadn't gone far when the cow tumbled off the roof, hanging by the string around its neck, which strangled it. The cow's weight pulled the woman up the chimney, where she got stuck halfway and was smothered in soot. Well, that was one big silly. The gentleman traveled on and on, eventually stopping at an inn for the night. The inn was so full that he had to share a double-bedded room with another traveler. The other man was quite pleasant, and they became friendly. But in the morning, as they both got dressed, the gentleman was surprised to see the other man hang his trousers on the knobs of the chest of drawers, then run across the room and try to jump into them. He tried over and over, but couldn't manage it. At last, the man stopped, wiping his face with his handkerchief. "Oh dear," he sighed. "I do think trousers are the most awkward clothes ever invented. It takes me the best part of an hour to get into mine every morning, and I get so hot. How do you manage yours?" The gentleman burst out laughing and showed him how to put them on properly. The man was very grateful and said he never would have thought of doing it that way. So that was another big silly. The gentleman continued his travels. He came to a village where a crowd of people stood around a pond, holding rakes, brooms, and pitchforks, reaching into the water. "What's the matter?" he asked. "Why," they cried, "matter enough. The moon's tumbled into the pond, and we can't rake her out." The gentleman burst out laughing and told them to look up at the sky, explaining it was only the moon's shadow in the water. But they wouldn't listen, and instead they abused him shamefully, so he quickly got away. So there were many more sillies, far bigger than the three sillies back home. The gentleman turned back home again and married the farmer's daughter. And if they didn't live happily ever after, that's nothing to do with you or me.